Hi, Mark, and today I want to talk about bad future prospects for the British monarchy, and that just days before the coronation of King Charles. Because demands to make New Zealand a republic have been around for a long time, but Chris Hipkins addresses this path again, but even he sees no reason to rush. But according to New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins, the Commonwealth state should become a republic in the foreseeable future. Ideally, over time, New Zealand will become a fully independent country and stand on its own 2 feet in the world, much as we do now, is what Hipkins said a few days ago, just days before the coronation of King Charles III. The Pacific state is a former British colony but is now self-governing. Charles, as head of state, is represented locally by a Governor-General. As Prime Minister, Hipkins said he has no intention of making such a change anytime soon. The rules in place are working well, and New Zealand has more urgent problems at the moment than starting such a debate, but he kind of did. Demands to make New Zealand a republic have been around for a long time, as I said, but so far without any formal steps. And Hipkins will attend the coronation ceremony in London on Saturday. According to him, a personal meeting with Charles is also planned during the stay. Hipkins' predecessor Jacinda Ardern, who surprisingly announced her retirement from politics in January, also said after the Queen's death that New Zealand would probably become a republic sooner or later. But even during the Queen's lifetime, there were discussions in some former colonies as to whether the monarchy was still the right form of government. And the transition to King Charles III could start a revolution, is what some people expected. And Gaston Browne was in a hurry at the time. The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda did not know any restraint after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. As soon as it was known that Queen's son Charles was the new king, Browne announced on the British broadcaster ITV that a referendum would take place within 3 years on whether the country with almost 100,000 inhabitants should become a republic. The Caribbean state is no exception there. With the death of the what they call eternal queen, discussions about the right form of government have flared up in many former British colonies. And Antigua and Barbuda is not an outlier in the region. And there's half of the 14 countries where King Charles III outside the United Kingdom is still the head of state. When Queen's grandson Prince William was traveling in the Caribbean in March, there were protests. In Jamaica, protesters demanded an apology and reparations for colonial era crimes. And we are moving on, said Prime Minister Andrew Holness, standing next to William, in reference to the monarchy. And so far there have been no concrete steps there either. In a July survey by the Jamaica Gleaner newspaper, 56% of more than 1,000 respondents in the island state, which used to be an extremely lucrative colony thanks to slave labor on sugarcane plantations, supported a departure from the crown. And now voices have been raised that see the right moment has come. And the Queen is dead, time to cut ties, was the headlines of a guest post in the Jamaica Observer. In November 2021, Barbados had already solemnly renounced the royal family in the presence of the then Prince Charles without a referendum. Barbados officially became a republic on November 30th, and Charles' mother, Queen Elizabeth, lost her status as head of state as a result at the time. Britain took possession of the Caribbean island in 1625. Barbados became independent in 1966, but the Queen remained head of state at the time. As in some other Commonwealth countries, she is represented locally by a Governor-General, was, of course. In September 2020, the incumbent Governor-General Sandra Mason announced the formal break with the British Crown. It is time to leave our colonial past behind, she said. And at the end of November of that year, Mason officially took over as head of state from Barbados, as president. And a Buckingham Palace spokesman said at the time, it was a matter for the government and people of Barbados. In Oceania, I started with New Zealand. The discussion about the monarchy was particularly heated recently in Australia as well. Thousands protested against the crown on a national day of mourning in honor of Elizabeth II. Flags were burned, painted over in the colors of the Aboriginal flag in homage to the Queen, because Aborigines in particular associate the monarchy with the colonialization and oppression of the indigenous people. Greens leader Adam Band said, "Australia now has a new king, but we didn't elect this man. The head of state must be elected by the people and for the people." In a 1999 referendum, 45% of Australians voted to leave the crown. Various surveys recently gave a narrow result, though. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese stressed at the time that he was not currently planning a referendum. In the past, he had repeatedly indicated that he wanted to make Australia a republic, though. And I already talked about New Zealand in Oceania. And as I said already, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said she expects the country to become a republic in her lifetime. But she said the same like the new one. The government has more pressing tasks at the moment. In the South Sea state of Tuvalu, the smallest member of the Commonwealth, 2 referendums in 1986 and 2008 resulted in a majority for the monarchy. But the topic has flared up again and a constitutional amendment is being considered. And of course, there's North America, Hi Cthulhu. The Canadian government will not change the country's parliamentary monarchy system. It offers extraordinary stability, as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently said. We have an exceptional Governor General who embodies the best of Canadians, and we have a crown that oversees what is happening, sometimes from a convenient distance. The system would be well balanced and would serve Canadians greatly. In the second largest country in the world in terms of area, Mary Simon has been the official representative of the head of state for the first time since 2021, I guess. In general, attitudes towards the crown vary greatly by region and age. In the French-influenced province of Quebec, for example, there is a clear majority of opponents of the monarchy, as a recent survey found out. On the other hand, there are more supporters in Ontario and along the Atlantic coast. On the West Coast, people are often considered rather indifferent to this question. But on this topic, we must not forget Africa, because the continent is a special case. 21 African countries are currently members of the Commonwealth of Nations. However, the British monarch is not the head of state in any of them. Most African Commonwealth countries were crown colonies until the mid-20th century, such as Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana. But in the meantime, the British Confederation has also established itself as a political alternative for other African countries. Former Portuguese colonies such as Mozambique were already looking to join in the 1990s, and Angola submitted an application for admission. Even more interest comes from former French colonies. Central African Gabon and West African Togo became members in 22, although France offers a similar organization with the so-called Francophonie. Even in King Charles' homeland, though, the change in the throne is a reason for some people to push for changes. The interest group Republic called for a national debate on the future of the monarchy just 2 days after the death of the Queen. The proclamation of a new king is an affront to democracy, was said by spokesman Graham Smith. And according to Republic, more than a quarter of Britons are now in favor of abolishing the monarchy. Politically, the Scots in particular are pushing for a detachment from London, but it doesn't mean a detachment from the crown, I'm just saying. However, this will not have any consequences for the crown because the pro-independence party SNP has repeatedly made it clear that an independent Scotland would remain a monarchy. But this group Republic also said that they will demonstrate during the coronation festivities on Saturday, and we will see how many people they get to the streets. I'm not so sure about the numbers with a quarter of the public because I've seen different polls as well, but we will see how many will show up. But I'm quite sure that this will not overshadow the Saturday. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.